I didn't fail one diet when I lost 50 kilograms. I failed dozens. I promised myself every time that I'd start again Monday. It would get to Monday and I wouldn't. I promised it would be different. I promised I wouldn't be back where I started, but every time I was. I found that I could stick to it for a little bit, but then it would just go wrong. Today I'm going to talk about the key things that people do that mean that they fail their diet. Here's me at 120 kilograms back in 2018. And here's me 50 kilograms later at 70 kilograms in 2020. Losing that weight was extremely difficult, but I stuck to it and I managed to do it. And I didn't just have a failed diet over and over again. Here's me today. I weigh about 88 kilograms now. I'm significantly heavier than I was when I lost all the weight, but I feel healthier, I feel stronger, I feel better than ever. But that's because I've learned lots of lessons over losing all that weight that I reinvested into myself later on. I think the first thing that makes it go wrong is that people try and change absolutely everything overnight. They think, right, I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to eat 100% clean. I'm not going to have any treats. I'm going to be in like 1,000 calorie deficit. And that absolutely ruins it for them. I think changing that many things in your life can be extremely taxing on someone. Now, some people don't like change more than others, but realistically, we are creatures of habit. And if you make that many changes, your body is going to feel so confused about why on earth you're doing that. Don't get me wrong, lots of those things I think in the long run are something that you'll be able to achieve. But if you're at the start of your weight loss journey, you probably don't actually need to change that much to begin. You probably just need to lower your calories slightly, start doing some more movement, and you can really build it into the diet. You can change your habits bit by bit. This leads me on to number 2. This is dieting way too aggressively. As I said, people just chuck on 1,000 calorie deficit right from the start and don't even really think about it. They think, yep, I'll be able to stick to that, without actually changing the surrounding factors to that. These massive deficits can cause you to be constantly hungry. They can mean that you're really low energy, you're really moody, you're really just unhappy with life, if I'm being quite frank with it. You can find that you're in such a deficit that actually your body is like, what on earth are you doing? Now don't get me wrong, for some people 1,000 calorie deficit might be reasonable. I think actually when I was 120 kilograms, to begin I probably was in about 1,000 calorie deficit. I feel like the amount of calories that I could eat on the daily and the amount of weight that I had on myself, sticking to that was not too bad. But I think sometimes you need to be realistic with what your deficit is and assess the overall rate of loss that you can work towards. You're just likely to quit if you go too aggressively on it. You're going to think, God, this is horrible. And you may feel motivated at the start, but you won't later on. This does lead me into the next point. I think there's an expectation that your motivation will last. I think lots of people think that you will feel motivated on day 1, but then by day 40, by day 50, you are not going to feel as motivated as that. You're going to be into the diet, you're going to be hungry, you're not really going to be particularly motivated to move things forward. Now, some people might be. Some people may have days of motivation as well, that they feel extra good about things. Use those days to progress yourself, but don't think that the motivation will last every single day of your diet. This means that you have to build habits that you stick to. You have to build things that you're going to be able to stick to on a daily basis. You're going to have to get used to living in that calorie deficit, and it needs to become a lifestyle, and you need to be determined to work towards those goals that you have in mind. I think you very much need to realise that it's a long-term goal that you have here. This isn't something that you can just stick to for a month, 2 months, and then the second that's finished you can go, yeah, I'm not going to bother now, and because you'll probably just put the weight straight back on. I think number 4 is that a bad week or a bad day turns into a bad month or a bad year. And I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but my point is that sometimes people have a bad day. They've been sticking with it. They've been 3 weeks straight, absolutely on it. And they have a day where they go out with their friends, they have a bit to drink, they have a nice meal and all that sort of stuff. And then suddenly they think, oh, I've ruined it. I've had 4,000 calories today. It's absolutely, there's no point going any further with this. I might as well quit my diet. I don't think this is the case at all though. I think actually when you think about how much work you've put in, say you've been in a deficit of 500 calories every single day over the course of 3 weeks, realistically your overall deficit is going to be upwards of 10,000 calories. That means that one day where you're a couple of thousand over, actually you've only pulled yourself back a small amount in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's what you need to remember. Yes, you may be delaying your long-term goal. You may be. But I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think you should be panicking over that. Because actually, if you do the 2,000 calories over worth of damage on one day, the next day, if you do that again, you're deleting so much more progress than you need to. When actually, if you just get back on it, you don't try and overcompensate those calories. Don't try and go, well, I'm going to take off those 2,000 calories the next day, because then you go back to the dieting too aggressively part, and you'll actually feel worse for it. Don't get me wrong, try and put in the effort to work it off, but don't overextend yourself, is my point. Even when I was losing 50 kg, I definitely had days, I had weeks that I realistically put my diet on hold for. And it was only having that long-term target in mind that really made the difference. Just don't throw it away, build habits, and have it so that your days that you're eating too much are off days rather than a regular day. Finally, number 5. I think the biggest mistake is that people only think about the scales. They only think about losing weight. And don't get me wrong, I did that when I lost the 50 kilograms. I was so locked in on watching the scales go down and making it as low as I possibly could, having visual changes and stuff like that. But I think what you're building is a longer term goal than that. You need to build long-term habits, because you've got to keep this weight off once you lose it. You can't just go back and eat what you want the second you finish that diet, because you will gain it back. I think the stats on how many people lose a lot of weight and then gain it back is insane. But it doesn't surprise me at all, because if you treat a diet as a one-time thing, then actually you won't be able to stick to things quite as well as you'd hoped. But actually building those habits is so important. You don't want to revert back to where you were before in order to gain that weight in the first place. You can build into your diet your new maintenance calories and be able to stick to that. Or do what I did, where I started to rebuild muscle and I worked out how to train my body in order to build some muscle afterwards. Now don't get me wrong, that came with mistakes too, and I cover that in some other videos. But realistically, you are building towards long-term targets here. And I think that's so important to think about when you're doing a long-term diet. It's not just the now you're working towards your future self, and your future self will thank you for it. The difference between now and me at 120 kilograms isn't motivation, it isn't that perfect diet. It's about habits and consistency that I've stuck with for years. I want you to tell me what you're struggling with the most. What habits can you just not shake? What sort of diet are you just throwing away immediately because you can't stick to it? And what's one piece of advice that you feel like you could give other people from your own experience?